be on my side tonight? Can it possibly be on my side? How is everyone? You know the drill. I know it's a pain in the ass, but I mean, if this cuts out, you know how it goes. We're gonna premiere it later. I'm still working on it, still identifying the issue. My end, their end, both ends. It's hard to explain, it's hard to figure out. It's so mysterious. Okay, how's everyone today? What's going on? Thank you for hanging out. I see a Yoshin there. I see Cosmic. I see Political Puppet. What's up, 3 a.m. Worm? What's going on? Thank you for joining me. All right, so I found an interesting article today. We're going to cover a couple things. Obviously, we got the incoming death wave of coronavirus deaths. 100,000 to 200,000 people could be dead in the upcoming weeks as Trump prepares the nation in a sombering speech the other day. So we're going to see if that comes to fruition or what the deal is. Obviously, we saw the current numbers. We're pushing 1 million. We got 46,000 deaths, almost 50K. 193,000 people recovered. We've got the mainstream media, as predicted, especially as predicted on this channel. We started to see the coverage over the Chinese lying about their numbers, which was, pretty obvious. Although there's a great mystery going on, right? Which is essentially the lack of activity at local hospitals. There's a recent trend. #FilmYourHospital. We'll check that out. I have some things to say about that. In other words, that's kind of a hashtag for people that believe the entire thing is a hoax. One giant hoax, nothing exists with the coronavirus. I don't subscribe to that belief, and I'll explain to you why as we explore it together. I think there's a lot of inflation. I think there's media hype. I think there's exaggeration. They're being hyperbolic about it. But empty hospitals it's not exactly evidence. Not exactly evidence that this entire thing is fake, but it is a curiosity. So here are the numbers here. 213,000 in the U.S. Increasing lockdowns as well. We've got Florida following suit with the stay-at-home orders, shelter in place. Georgia's going to be coming up next. We're also seeing our first stories of enforcement. Remember, suggested at first. Now it's starting to be enforced. We have people throwing parties. A legal house party. Don't like to hear that phrase. Sure, it's one thing if you break up a house party because of noise or whatever reason. That's pretty reasonable. But it's a little unsettling when you start to see it getting shut down because people are not following social distancing guidelines. And look, I do agree with some of that to an extent, right? Because let's pretend like this disease is not completely blown out of proportion, and it might not be. Maybe it is. But if it's not completely blown out of proportion, and it is some fucking bioweapon, right, which we'll explore, especially in this article, isn't it interesting? A viable sample from a Chinese biologist at a Detroit airport carrying viable samples of both SARS and MERS, which are kind of the components of COVID 2.0, right? Or rather SARS 2.0. Remember the big brother of SARS coming back from college? Right? It is kind of curious. So my point is that social distancing rules would obviously help curb the transmission rate, should this be an actual legitimate thing and all these lockdowns actually justified. But those are the stories we got coming up, maybe a couple other things. I believe Trump is actually live right now with a briefing. I don't know if I should check into that or not. Anyway, let's just jump right into the story. I appreciate everyone stopping by. Once again, I usually stream on DLive first, so if you guys want to follow me on DLive, I'm at the same name. That's MemoryHold. I'm on Twitter at MemoryHold as well. I have a Patreon set up if you feel like donating to the show, although just covering these stories and talking with all you is enough for me, but you know how it goes. All right. Interesting story. Okay, National Review. Border Patrol stopped a Chinese biologist carrying viable SARS, MERS viruses at Detroit Airport in 2018. Let's see what this is about. U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers at Detroit Metro Airport stopped a Chinese scientist carrying vials believed to contain the MERS and SARS viruses in November 2018, just over a year before the first reported Wuhan coronavirus case. And this was according to an FBI tactical intelligence report obtained by Yahoo News. Quote, inspection of the writing on the vials and the stated recipient led inspection personnel to believe the materials contained within the vials may be viable Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, MERS, and severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS materials. The vials were labeled antibodies, and the unnamed scientist, unnamed, he shall remain unnamed, the unnamed scientist said he was asked to deliver them to a researcher at a U.S. institute. Let's see if this scientist remains unnamed, and I'm curious to see if the U.S. Institute also remains unnamed, but the report also lays out a pattern of Chinese interference, detailing two other cases from May 2018 and September 2019, in which different Chinese nationals tried to enter the U.S. with undeclared flu strains and suspected E. coli, respectively. So we've covered the Chinese infiltration and the espionage activities that are actually quite rampant, right? I mentioned specifically how Chinese tourists with cameras just happen to stumble on Navy bases, taking photos, and they don't even give a shit. They get caught and they're still taking photos as they're getting escorted out, which is kind of hysterical to me. And we also talked about Charles Lieber, who I would guarantee is mentioned in this article. In fact, I think he is. Yep, I'm seeing Harvard University. Where's old Charlie? Yeah, he's in there. That's him. And of course, we talked about the people up in Canada that had been smuggling out viable samples of the world's most dangerous pathogens like Ebola out of the University of Winnipeg, or rather, the National Microbiology Lab in Canada. And they were bringing that back not only just to China, literally the Wuhan Level 4 Institute of Virology. And let's not forget that Charles Lieber, of course, worked for the Wuhan Institute of Technology. So these connections here, it's not even just like they're connected to China. They're specifically connected to Wuhan, specifically. And this one's like kind of like a double whammy, the whole Charles Lieber thing, because, you know, whether he's involved or not, the fact remains that he was involved in Chinese espionage and probably committed multiple treasonous acts, if not somehow directly related to what's unfolding in front of our eyes today. The Weapon of Mass Destruction Directorate assesses foreign scientific researchers who transport undeclared and undocumented biological materials into the U.S. in their personal carry-on and or checked luggage almost certainly present a U.S. biosecurity risk, the report states. The WMDD makes this assessment with high confidence based on liaison reporting with direct access. The FBI has stepped up its efforts to combat Chinese espionage operations in recent months after admitting failures in preventing the recruitment of U.S. researchers by Beijing's Thousand Talents Plan. Yes, that's the name of it. I was trying to remember it. That's what Charles Lieber was into. He was involved with the Thousand Talents Plan. And that's exactly what I was talking about. It's basically like a glorified spy program. You're recruiting Chinese spies and, I guess, sort of like double agents. You know, you got an American Charles Lieber working on behalf of the Chinese military, which of course the Department of Justice document and the indictment didn't mention anything about this. Really, it was just related to the fact that he didn't disclose that he was making money from the Chinese military. So even the actual Department of Justice release was kind of light. You know, you can't help but see a connection here. So actually it's kind of interesting that they're even mentioning like this, like espionage, Chinese espionage specifically, in the same article of, this pandemic going on. Because I guess what I'm trying to say is that the media doesn't really want anyone to know that this is a fucking bioweapon. I'd have to imagine that doesn't really suit their needs, right? Because then immediately people start questioning. They start questioning who did it come from, where it come from, who is involved, and why. What's the goal? What's the objective here? What's the agenda? So I find it interesting that the National Review is mentioning this, though I will admit I'm actually not too familiar with the National Review, so perhaps it's known for its honesty, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's completely bullshit, and maybe this never happened, right? And that's why we take a look at things like this, because we need to. It's our jobs. There's not many of us out there. We have to analyze every angle, every route. I'm going to lose my spot here. With our present-day knowledge of the threat from Chinese plans, we wish we had taken more rapid and comprehensive action in the past, John Brown, who's the Assistant Director of the Counterintelligence Division of the FBI, told a Senate subcommittee in November. The time to make up for that is now, right, in the middle of people dying by the tens of thousands. In January, the head of Harvard University's chemistry department was federally charged with failing to disclose funding from the Chinese government after he hid his involvement in the Talents program, which encourages the stealing of U.S. intellectual property. Right, because China can't really make any of this shit by themselves. Yeah, they might make half the stuff that I'm wearing right now, or I'm using, or maybe this microphone even came from China, but they're not making it themselves. They need to steal the intelligence from countries like the United States. Just because we're so thoroughly infiltrated by them, it's really probably just easier to leapfrog ahead and maintain themselves as a technological contender. If they were left up to their own devices to develop this technology, it probably wouldn't work out very well. But what do I know? I'm not a Chinese specialist in Chinese technological programs and development. I'm just a guy that works 9 to 5 and then makes videos alone in my room talking to you guys, which I value highly. China has come under fire for its handling of the coronavirus despite pushing propaganda, which had been parroted by Western media in an attempt to shift criticism to the U.S., to the United States. A study released earlier this month detailed how the Chinese Communist Party could have prevented 95% of total infections if it had acted sooner to limit the spread and warn others. So are you guys noticing, like, part of the psyop to me, I feels like, is just, it's meant to throw us off. Like, they just go and say one thing and then they take it back and say something completely different. Don't wear masks, they don't help. But actually, a few months later, you should start wearing masks. And in fact, it might be mandatory when you go out in public. People in the shelter-in-place locations like New York, Washington, whatever, we all have to wear masks. But not that long ago, we were told not to wear masks, right? They don't help, and we have to save them for the medical professionals. And also, you know, China fucked up. They could have prevented 95% of everything and maybe even stemmed its infection across the globe. But at the same time, we've got the World Health Organization, or at least people in the World Health Organization and the CDC, praising China on their quick, swift action to combat coronavirus, you know, which included welding people into their homes and possibly killing people that resisted quarantine areas. I mean, we saw a lot of gritty footage from there, and make no mistake, it is up for debate as to whether all of them were authentic, but I think it would be more harmful to just automatically assume those videos were fake than they are to be cautiously skeptical about them. I mean, they could all be fake. It's not like there was thousands and thousands of pieces of footage out there, and some of them were like 10-second clips of someone shaking on the ground, right? I mean, did we check the metadata on it? I mean, it's coming from China, for God's sakes, you know? But at the same time, though, you have journalists and shit disappearing. Would they really disappear journalists if the goal was to release fake footage? If it was fake footage just as some type of, linear warfare, irregular warfare, without firing bullets and dropping bombs, you'd want this exposed to the American public so they can slowly watch the virus creep their way and instill fear in them. Weaken the economy, weaken ground forces, weaken society in America before you stage maybe an actual attack, some other strategy. So that's kind of my skepticism there. But my point is that it's like this entire thing is designed to just fuck with your brain. They're like, watch the media closely. Like, they'll say one thing 1 week, and then 3 weeks later, it's the complete opposite. And you can tell it's not like an authentic unfolding of events either. You know, like the mask thing. It's not like scientists studied whether masks were effective or not against a virus between when they said they weren't till now. So that tells me there's an agenda as to why you're saying don't wear any mask, dum-dum. And now you're telling me to? It's bullshit. Something's going on, and part of me thinks that it's all fear-based. I mean, we know that the media side of it's all inflated, it's all fake. Fake in the sense of what they're trying to instill in us, which is just fear and control over our personal lives, our livelihood, and our freedoms. I don't know. It's just interesting to me. You know, they say one thing one day, they say another thing another day, and it just kind of bugs me. It's fatiguing. It's annoying. Just kind of sick of it, which is why I haven't really gone live about Corona in a little while. I'm actually working on another project right now, trying to do like 15-minute bits of different subjects, like Las Vegas shooting, Franco Bradley, Pizzagate, just kind of like short bits and pieces that might be more viewable to people that don't have time to watch my fucking videos for 5 hours. Anyway, let's move over to the death wave that's apparently coming in. We're going to see if that happens. The death wave. That's what it's called from here on out, the Corona death wave. Trump warns of painful 2 weeks as officials predict up to 240,000 U.S. coronavirus deaths. But as a matter of fact, before that, let me just go ahead and check the chat. I should check the audio, although the levels look good. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Hey, Muzz, thank you for joining. Anonymous, what's up? Classic is here. What's going on? Shadow as well. Thank you. Memory looks exactly like Titus Frost. Is that him? Hey, you know, I serve as his body double from time to time when he's too tired to stream. You just blew it though. You ruined it for me. He was paying me a pretty penny. Take this back. Just pretend I never admitted to being Titus's body double, please. He's paying me to be his fill-in sometimes. Hey, Graybo. What's up, replied? And Sadie. We got Poland Man here. What's up? All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. I appreciate you hanging out. Hopefully, everyone's week is going well. Lockdown Copenhagen. What's up? Hi from Lockdown, New York. Hi from Lockdown, New York. Yeah, Pizzagate is real for sure. And I think the video I'm coming out with, I don't want to speak too far ahead of myself because I've had a busy schedule recently working from home because of, you know, lockdown. It's funny how working from home yields more work and more intense work. But I think you might like the series. It's kind of light. It's actually designed specifically for those that have no idea what Pizzagate is or just are simply resistant to it for no good reason at all. It's one of those that maybe you can literally send your friends and family if the topic comes up and they're still resistant to it. Most of my videos are meant to kind of balance the line between like entertaining for people that are new and welcoming, right, to the uninitiated, showing the evidence, but also kind of like receptive and entertaining to those that have more years even on me, right? And more advanced knowledge. So it's kind of a careful line to toe. But let's get into this story. Trump warns of painful 2 weeks as officials once again predict up to 240,000 U.S. coronavirus deaths. And again, this is the corona death wave. That's the name from here on out. So let's take a look at this clip. Let's roll it. Please, computer, do not shut down.
I want every American to be prepared for the hard days that lie ahead. We're going to go through a very tough 2 weeks, but this is going to be a very painful, very painful 2 weeks.
Dr. Fauci, should Americans be prepared for the likelihood that there will be 100,000 Americans who die from this virus?
The answer is yes. We need, as sobering a number as that is, we should be prepared for it. 100 to 200,000, anything, which is a lot of people, right? It's a lot of people. The question is, what would have happened if we did nothing? Because there was a group that said, let's just write it out. Let's write it out. What would have happened? And that number comes in at 1.5 to 1.6 million people, up to 2.2 and even beyond. So that's 2.2 million people would have died if we did nothing. We just carried on our life.
This may be an uncomfortable question, but what would the models have looked like that Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci showed us if we had started these social distancing guidelines sooner, in February or January?
If there was no virus in the background, there was nothing to mitigate. If there was virus there that we didn't know about, then the answer to your question is probably yes. Now, the only trouble with that is that whenever you come out and say something like that, it always becomes almost a soundbite that gets taken out of context.
But we were watching South Korea, and China and Italy, and we weren't taking action when those countries were spiking.
Sure. In a perfect world, it would have been nice to know what was going on there.
Is there any fairness to the criticism that you may have lulled Americans into a false sense of security when you were saying things like it's going to go away?
Well, it is.
And that sort of thing. But
Jim, it's going away.
But when you were saying
it's going to go away, hopefully at the end of the month, and if not, it hopefully will be soon after that.
Disappear.
I want to be positive. I don't want to be negative. I'm a positive person. Somebody said, "Oh, I wish you'd be more negative." They literally have that. It's in one of the wonderful newspapers today. I wish it'd be more negative. Well, this is really easy to be negative about, but I want to give people hope too. You know, I'm a cheerleader for the country. We're going through the worst thing that the country's probably ever seen. Don't forget, at that time, people didn't know that much about it. Even the experts, we were talking about it. We didn't know where it was going. We saw China, but that was it. Maybe it would have stopped at China. We wish we could have killed it in China. But it didn't happen. It started spreading to Europe. It started spreading here. It started spreading all over. And I'm not blaming anybody.
Interesting to note, the worst thing that America could have possibly be going through, it's possibly the worst thing the country's ever been through. World War II, September 11th. I mean, it's probably just a phrase, obviously. I mean, just statistically wise. I mean, we've already surpassed 9/11 numbers, of course, but like, and, not even Trump, given all his slip-ups, would compare this to, like, World War II. And besides, that's different type of death. I mean, that's just barbaric type shit, Donald Trump has warned America to. Oh, by the way, before I start this, isn't it funny that this is just elementary observation, but isn't it hysterical that they still want to smear Trump? Like, make of it what you will. I don't really care what you think of Trump. It's just a matter of, isn't it hysterical that these parasites, these fucking journalists in quotes, still have to find a way to make it negative, Because here's the thing: they're criticizing Trump for his kind of not being naive, but just kind of lulling us into a false sense of security. That's kind of the paraphrase of what he just said. And I don't know, there's been word of this thing bouncing around the United States for quite some time, right? Just being very subtle, mistaken flu deaths, right? A lot of people died of the flu, but upon testing, they didn't test positive for the flu. So what was it? Was it possibly this? We don't know. So it's just disingenuous. We all know that, but I figured might as well put it in there. Donald Trump has warned America to brace for a very, very painful 2 weeks as the White House projected that the coronavirus pandemic could claim 100,000 to 240,000 lives, even if current social distancing guidelines are maintained. So we're going to see a major influx in these cases, not corona cases, I mean cases of shelter-in-place orders, shutdown orders. Like I just said, the story we're going into here shortly is Florida shelter-in-place orders, Georgia shelter-in-place orders, and then enforcement of those orders, right? So this is where the panic's going to really set in, okay? People were already losing their shit before this, but now 100,000 to 200,000 lives are going to be lost due to this? Oh, boy. Holy shit, take all my rights. Just take them away. I don't need them. I don't want to die. Striking an unusually somber tone at the start of a marathon 2-hour briefing, the U.S. defended his early handling of the crisis and displayed models that he said justified his decision to keep much of the economy shut down. I want every American to be prepared for the hard days that lie ahead, Trump said at the White House. We're going to go through a very tough 2 weeks. This is going to be very painful, very, very painful 2 weeks. The U.S. death toll from the coronavirus climbed past 3,800 on Tuesday, that was yesterday, eclipsing China's official count, which is kind of bullshit, but again, we'll see. We don't even know what we're messing with here. Trump has been widely condemned for exacerbating the crisis by failing to prepare testing kits, breathing apparatuses, and other equipment. I see this article's just shitting on Trump mode. On Tuesday, his experts said their models showed between 100K, 240K Americans could die, even if the mitigation measures are still in place. Deborah Birx at the White House Coronavirus Task Force response coordinator said models showed a worst-case scenario of between 1.5 million and 2.2 million deaths in the U.S. without mitigation. But with measures in place, she added, the mountain could be reduced to a hill. That projects 100K to 240K deaths. Still a staggering total. She stressed that the number could be lower if people change their behavior. Yes, stay inside, citizen. Hand over your rights, citizen. It's going to be 300,000, 400,000. It's all because of you. You went outside. You got a coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, you piece of shit. 300,000 people died because of you. Because you decided to walk your fucking dog. It's your fault. It's your fault. Instilling guilt and fear in the populace, she displayed a chart in which New York had by far the most cumulative cases, followed by New Jersey, then the other 48 states bunched together. Birx expressed hope that social distancing could prevent major outbreaks in those states. All right, so we could go on, and it's really just going to be, when I read this before, there was nothing outstanding about this article. I did just want to hit the headline talking about that recent projection, and this ties back to the original American Hospital Association projection that was actually a little bit more severe than this. I forget the exact number. You guys might remember this, but for those that haven't seen it, let's take a look real quick. One slide in a leaked presentation for U.S. hospitals revealed that they're preparing for millions of hospitalizations as the outbreak unfolds. This was March 6th, so this was before the hospitals started preparing. This was before the naval ships. This was before the makeshift hospitals. This was before all the major shutdowns, or at least right on the cusp of that time. Where's that slide, though? Yeah, here's the estimates, though. 4.8 million hospitalizations associated with novel coronavirus, 96 million cases overall in the U.S., 480,000 deaths. That actually, I remember that number being higher from these leaked presentations, but obviously it's 2 times higher than this, but it's not in the millions. Overall, the slide points out that hospitals should prepare for an impact to the system that's 10 times as severe as the flu season. And that's what they're saying, at least, right? They're saying hospitals are right at the cusp of hitting that capacity. So we're gonna see. But then, of course, you've got this group of people on Twitter, and this was kind of a thing a couple days ago. I just didn't even bother covering it, but I'm doing it here because why not? As you can see, 260 tweets in the last hour. It's kind of dying down. But there's people going around filming their hospitals, and it's basically just dead outside. And there's not much going on in the inside. People are filming nurses and doctors talking about how the media is basically not hoaxing this entire thing, but also not exactly being honest about the severity of it. But I'm skeptical. I feel like this is too far to the spectrum of this thing being a hoax. I think it might be lined up to make us look bad, because I simply do not think this entire thing is actually a hoax. Like, for instance, let's take a look at this one. Our emergency rooms are quieter because people are actually using them appropriately. Doctors' offices are quiet because they're using telehealth. Our hospital actually has empty beds because we've canceled all. This is what I was about to say. The elective procedures, which takes up like a lot of the resources in a hospital, they're canceled, right? And I have a buddy that works in a hospital. He's not a surgeon. He's not a doctor. What he does is he cleans the tools. I forget the name of it. He cleans the tools. So after a surgery is done, he gets to mess with all the disgusting, bloody tools that are inserted into a human's body. And he said the same shit. It's just the elective procedures have been canceled. And that's going to be at least some of the source of the silence. But again, we can't just simply leave it at that and not explore this, because from the evidence that we've researched on this channel, there is some funny business going on in terms of inflating the severity. And, this type of shit too. As you can see, this fake news footage you guys might have seen. They're reusing footage from an Italian hospital and saying it's in New York. Let's take a look at this. So it's shit like this where it's like, I don't necessarily, hate on the people that are going to film their hospital and saying this is all bullshit. It's all fake. None of it's happening. Because can you blame them for thinking that? You get it to a certain level of pessimism when you research this type of shit for years, because you just realize just how fake most entities and organizations are that we see in our day-to-day lives. Turn on the television, flick open a newspaper, open up a magazine. Do they exist anymore? I think they do. Anyway, it's just bullshit. Even pick up, I don't know. If I were to look up Angry Orchard online, I guarantee you they're a cheerleader for the trans agenda for children. Like shit like that, when you're just inundated by it, year by year by year. I can't blame the people for just thinking, wow, the hospitals are less busy than average, but on the news, they're saying they're overwhelmed. They're sending in fucking naval ships. I can't blame them, but let's just take a look at this. This is interesting.
This is the main hospital in Bergamo, in Lombardy province. It's one of the most advanced hospitals in Europe.
It's like the same footage.
But it's the most hard-hit of all the hospitals in... This is the main hospital in Bergamo, in Lombardy province. It's one of the most advanced hospitals in Europe.
Here's the thing, too, let me see this. CBS used footage from an Italian hospital for a segment on conditions in New York City. Their White House correspondent won't identify an alleged official she claims said Kung flu. They're trying to hurt real Donald Trump instead of reporting facts. Okay, well, aside from the whole Donald Trump hurting thing, what's interesting to me is, check this out. It seems like there's a concerted agenda to actually fake this footage. So let's be optimistic for a second. Mistakes happen, right? We know journalists don't fact-check shit. That's just, might as well be objectively measurable and scientific fact at this point. But what's interesting is, take this to example. This is the video clip, right? One aired March 22nd, the next March 25th. So New York City, Italy, whatever. But then you have the still images that were released from the news articles that did not broadcast the footage, but instead only hosted the still images and pictures. The images themselves were photoshopped. Like, they moved a dude's legs and they moved one doctor to one side, and you could tell there's like blurs and pixelations that don't belong there. So that, to me, tells me that's a step taken to consciously to consciously perpetrate a hoaxed coverage. This could be an accident because people don't fact check shit, which is why we the media now. That's why. They've given up the throne. They don't know it. They still think they're in power. But, why do they get most of their shit from us? Or when they don't actually use the shit that we find, they are weaponized against us. Like, why do they care about us so much if they have so much power and if they're that much relevant? If they're that relevant, they don't. But the fact that they're photoshopping the still images that's bullshit. That's shady. That's, in my daydreams, that's like public execution levels of shady. But that would, we don't advocate violence. That's in video games. That's in Minecraft, So I'm just kind of browsing this feed to give you an idea of like the authentic conversation that's stemming from this. I know a lot of it also came from the footage that was released. There was people loading bodies into a refrigerated trailer outside of one of the hospitals, but it was weird. It was like one was coming out of a coffin, right? And the dude, I don't know if I can find the footage, but the dude was like, we gotta pray, man. This shit's real. This shit's really real. It's really happening. But it's like, you put a infected patient in a coffin. I mean, these people are getting incinerated, right? They're getting cremated. That's how you deal with the infected. That's just how it goes. So it's just kind of weird. Let's see what Julie says. Show us the overflowing hospitals because the hospital staff are complaining that there's lack of work. Real Candace started a Film Your Hospital page a couple of days ago. People across the country showed the lack of emergencies going on. Nothing like the news hype, but Trump said the next 2 weeks will be the worst. So maybe your page was too premature to be an accurate picture. I mean, not necessarily, because they've been saying we're just about at surge capacity for a little bit. Or at least not surge capacity, but like we're pushing it, People have been saying that hospitals were overwhelmed. For a little while now. That's nothing new, at least for the past, like a week, 2 weeks? Oh, and by the way, I should mention, I was the first Film Your Hospital guy. I made the first film. You know what? I'm the originator of Film Your Hospital. I'll show you guys. I filmed my hospital. See? Look at that, March 12th. March 12th, I filmed my hospital. Right when they erected one of the tents. I know it's hard to see. I even saw, yeah, I originated this term. Got him. I won again. Now, when I was here, though, I saw a couple people get wheeled out of the ambulance. They all had masks and gloves on and shit. There was a lot of activity around here. And since I filmed this on March 12th, they've erected an even bigger tent. So maybe I should hop on the trend and go and film my hospital again. That clearly had some level of activity. Let's take a look at some other stuff. And the thing about hospitals, if I know anything about hospitals, you can film the outside of a hospital and tell how busy it is, right? Surely you don't want to just like step inside and like take a look at the inside. Surely looking at the exterior walls and the windows is enough to indicate that this entire pandemic and hundreds of thousands of deaths and infections are just completely made up, simulated. That's enough evidence for me. Hit the bell. I wish I had a bell. Right, let's just do a drive-by. Look, the parking lot. Where is everyone? Where is everyone? I don't get it. So confused. And it is true. I guess the sick people drive themselves to the hospital and then park in the guest lot. So, guess the lack of cars in the parking lot is also suspicious. Right. There's a number. You see what I'm trying to do here? I'm playing both ends. There's some legitimate issues and legitimate concern to be had with slow hospitals, especially given the inflation we've seen and the fear-mongering, but at the same time, this is too much for me. If there are so many people dying of this alleged coronavirus hoax epidemic, why is the Kingston hospital so quiet these days? James Woods is even on it. In every major news event, cell phone videos invariably materialize. Every shooting, fire, earthquake, tornado, where are the videos of the hospitals being overwhelmed with patients? Something is creepy wrong and very scary about this entire event. And I'm not going to lie, the lack of any footage from the interior of hospitals is a little concerning to me. I know I'm kind of being a little rough on the old Film Your Hospital folks, but the lack of interior cell phone footage is concerning to me. There's always like some piece of footage that comes out. James Woods is right on that. Now, it's not like the doctors taking selfies with victims, or nurses even, but, like guests, family members, right? People that are angry at injustices happening. My meemaw, my peepaw can't get treatment because it's overwhelmed. Look how many people there are, and she's going to die because this hospital didn't adequately set up enough hospital beds in preparation of the coronavirus. And now my meemaw, my peepaw is going to die because of it. Shit like that, footage like that. And I'm not seeing that. So I'll hand that to them. That's true. But also, I will say that, filming the outside of a hospital is like kind of silly. Lothar says, I got the footage if you want. They put the bodies in the refrigerator truck. It's laughable because there's only 3 bodies in that truck, and they do not look like real ones. Yeah, it is kind of weird, man. I saw that too, and I'm like, I don't know about this. Plus, it could be taken out of context too, literally. I mean, I don't know from what events or time frame it would have actually, taken place in, loading hospitals with a small machine outside on the streets. But still, it's kind of suspicious. Ah, that's right, Sadie. Good point. They don't let you stay with your family members anymore. Yeah, the FaceTime goodbyes. You're right about that. That's true. I'm not a big fan of Trump, Drumstick says, but when 99% of the media is biased against him, that is telling us that he is not cooperating with the cabal. Yeah, there's something to be said about that for sure. He's got to be doing something that kind of irks people, pisses people off. Maybe it's the Fed shit. National Treasury shit. I haven't even covered that because honestly, I just don't know what to make of it. It's too big. It's too big for me. I'm still kind of soaking it in. So let's look at these containment or, enforced containment rules. This is kind of concerning. 10 people charged after police in New Jersey shut down engagement party. The hosts were charged with 6 counts of child endangerment. So damn, you know what I mean? That's shitty to have on your record. That sucks to have on your record. It's also kind of shitty to hold an event during all this. Yeah, I guess, but it's child endangerment. 10 adults, including a 99-year-old man, were charged Tuesday after police in New Jersey shut down an engagement party that violated the state's orders against social gatherings. I said we'd see it. I said we'd see shit like this. At approximately 4:30 p.m., police in Lakewood Township, near the Jersey Shore, were called to a residence on a report of a social gathering. Ocean County Prosecutor Bradley D. Billheimer and Police Chief Gregory Meyer said in a joint statement, officers found a group of people, including children, on the front lawn and inside the home. The homeowners who hosted the gathering and engagement party, I'm going to butcher this, but this must be some Jewish community, maybe an Orthodox Jewish community where it would make sense. They're the ones that are still holding events. Life is just moving on as usual with them. They don't give a shit. Notice the names. It has to be a Jewish community. I just hadn't bothered to look up Lakewood quite yet. In New Jersey, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, Lakewood Township. It's got to be a Jewish community. The homeowners who hosted the gathering, Yakov Kaufman, Itai Kaufman, were charged with 6 counts of child endangerment for each of their children who was in the attendance and with violating any rule or regulation adopted by the governor during a state of emergency. Governor Phil Murphy issued a stay-at-home order on March 21st that includes a ban on social gatherings such as weddings and parties. 8 other Lakewood residents at the engagement party were also charged with violating any rule or regulation adopted by the governor during a state of emergency. Joshua Lichtenstein, Broca Lichtenstein, Zipporah Wolf, Shmuel, good old Shmuel, Kaufman, Cyril Lichtenstein, Samuel Wolf, Michael Zimmerman, and you know what, fuck it, looking it up. I know it's an Orthodox Jewish community. Control F, Jew. Yep, it now ranks 5th. The sharp increase in population from 2000 to 2010 was led by increases in the township's Orthodox Jewish and Latino communities. Yep, there it is. That's the spice. We solved it. We did it, Reddit. The incident comes as another Lakewood couple faces multiple child endangerment charges for hosting an event with dozens of people on Sunday. Lakewood police were called to the home of Eliezer Silber and Miriam Silber and ordered 40 to 50 people gathered in the front yard to disperse. And, as well, on Friday night, about 40 miles northwest of Lakewood, in Ewing Township, police broke up a house party in which 47 people were crammed into a 550-square-foot apartment. I think there's even a DJ at that one. Murphy said over the weekend. The organizer wasn't charged, though. New Jersey has the second highest number of corona cases 18,696 cases as of Tuesday, 267 deaths. Here's the thing though, guys, in a previous video, I had spoken about a local community of Hasidic Jewish people, one of the bigger ones in New York, aside from like Brooklyn. And there was a doctor, I believe even Sean Hannity interviewed this doctor because he came out, with a YouTube video saying, I don't know what to do. We finally got some testing done. We tested 14 Hasidic Jews, and 9 out of the 14 tested positive. And he said he just kept testing them, positive, positive, positive. He said he just stopped testing them, just because he had a feeling at that point that they were all positive. Questionable medical ethics. I mean, don't you want to keep testing people instead of just assume? But I don't know. What am I? I'm not a doctor. But here's the thing: there was like a petition, or at least a request, going around to, make a quarantine zone around literally just that community, which I thought was hysterical. I definitely wouldn't love that. That would be a terrible tragedy. But Cuomo turned it down. So there's that. So I'm sitting on a frag grenade currently. I wonder if they even factor into the numbers, or if that would be anti-Semitic. I'm not entirely sure. But I should stop talking about this because I'm lucky to be even streaming live to you on YouTube right now, technologically. Watch it be the J word that shuts it down. This, though, I found extremely interesting. The most interesting story of the night was the first one, was the guy, the biologist carrying those SARS and MERS samples at the Detroit airport. I hadn't heard that. That was only published March 30th, a couple days ago. But this is kind of interesting. So you guys might be familiar with Netflix. So before the pandemic broke out, like mid-January basically, there was a bunch of shows that came out suddenly that focused on pandemics, that focused on viruses. Okay, and these are all sidelining Event 201. Like Event 201 had already happened in 2019. But then shows like Containment aired in the summer of 2019 on the CW channel. So kind of the timeline is kind of iffy, but it wasn't, as far as I know, it wasn't on Netflix until more recently than that, even maybe January. Then you have shows literally called Pandemic. I remember looking at this back before anyone in the United States gave a shit about the coronavirus, when I was still going to work, and people knew about it, but it was still like a subject to be joked about, and very light-hearted. We had no idea what was coming. We did, basically. Maybe not the specifics, but we knew that it was going to consume a lot of the mainstream coverage in a few weeks' time. So it's just interesting that it was coming out like right at that time, where it was, coronavirus was known. People were kind of talking about it, but it wasn't like trending. People weren't concerned, far from concerned. Fear wasn't even on the table at that point. Like if you told these people back at that time frame what it was going to look like now, they'd doubt it. They'd call you a, what's that word? What's the word I'm looking for? Conspiracy theorist? Anyway, isn't it funny though that the doctor that was featured in that Netflix show Pandemic, that had suspiciously good timing on Netflix and was sprawled as the main banner on Netflix for a while, featured show, brand new show, watch it, 5 stars. Isn't it weird that this doctor in that show is the one that finds the coronavirus cure? Huh. Little interesting to me. See if this loads. Guess it's just one of these text videos.
I'm happy to report that my team has successfully taken 5 antibodies that back in 2002 were determined to bind and neutralize, so block and stop the SARS virus. And we've evolved them in our laboratory so that now they very, very vigorously block and stop the CoV-2 virus as well. It's sort of like a short-term vaccine, except it works immediately. A vaccine could take 6 to 8 weeks to take effect, where this is going to take effect within 20 minutes. You could either give it to a patient who's sick, who is experiencing COVID-19, and then within 20 minutes of receiving the shot, their body's flooded with those antibodies. Those antibodies will go surround and stick all over a virus and make it so it's no longer infectious.
Seems too good to be true, and that's probably because it is. I guarantee this guy disappears off of the media and even Netflix and devolves into obscurity very quickly, but that begs the question, why cover it? Why run this in the news? Obviously, because there's a lot of newsreels right now, headlines, mainstream media headlines, talking about potential coronavirus cure. We already know that Israel just got lucky and found a vaccine. Well, what happened to that vaccine? So why run the story if it's not a real fucking vaccine, right? And why were they so lucky? Right? So my point here is just that it's just suspicious timing. A San Francisco doctor featured in the Netflix documentary Pandemic announced that he and his team have discovered a potential coronavirus cure, which will now be tested by the military. And by the way, that was interesting. It's only going to last 6 to 8 weeks. So are you going to have to redose forever and ever and ever, every 8 weeks, trip to the doctors for another corona shot? That fucking, what's this guy's name? Glanville, Jacob Glanville. Okay. All right, just double checking. Jacob Glanville, who runs the biotech company Distributed Bio. Yeah, I want to look into that later, actually. Forgot about that. All right. Probably a stone's toss away from some deep state Illuminati reptilian entity, I guarantee you. Shit, someone open up WikiLeaks as you watch this and search for it. Probably not, but still, wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, so Glanville tweeted that the new antibody therapy, which works by blocking the novel coronavirus from infecting human cells, is a candidate cure for the deadly bug. I'm happy to report that my team has successfully taken 5 antibodies that back in 2002 were determined to bind and neutralize, block and stop the SARS virus. We've evolved them in our lab, so now they're very vigorously block and stop the SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, coronavirus as well. The antibodies will be sent to the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases, which will use them directly against the virus to demonstrate whether they work as intended. See, so like I said, I mean, how viable and how practical is this if it has to be re-administered every 6 to 8 weeks? Unless, of course, there's an objective, there's an agenda, there's a mission behind wanting to push this dude that just so happened to get a Netflix deal and then come up with a coronavirus vaccine in record time that operates different than all vaccine from his own mouth because, right, you get a vaccine and it heals you forever, right? Except this guy's, because just like the luck and the coincidence of his show releasing right around the time an actual pandemic breaks out, he's also the guy that solves it. He cracks the case, and he's a big hero. This dude, when he was talking, it's like he's always on the verge of laughing, right? Like right here, he's just about to start laughing. Maybe that's just his facial expression. So now we know they bind on the same spot as the new virus, he continued. It binds the spot that the virus uses to gain entry into your cells. It blocks that. At this point, we know it binds the same spot extremely tightly with affinity, the doctor added. Glanville called the therapy sort of like a short-term vaccine, except it works immediately. You can give it to a patient who's sick, experiencing COVID-19, and then within 20 minutes of receiving the shot, their body is flooded with those antibodies. And those antibodies will surround the stick all over a virus, or surround and stick, all over a virus and make it so it's no longer infectious. You can also give it to a doctor or nurse or an elderly person, and they would then have those antibodies in them that would prevent them from getting infected in the first place. But the disadvantage, like I just said, it only protects people for 8 to 10 weeks, unlike a true vaccine. So what is it? If this is actually real and true and, not some hidden agenda type shit, why is it not a true vaccine? Isn't a true vaccine what we need? Or is a one and done type of shot not good enough? Do they just want to stick shit in our bodies over and over in weekly interims? It's hard to say. So my mission a little bit later might dig into this guy a little bit. If he's an actual hero, if old Dr. Jacob Glanville with the fucking smirk on his face turns out to be a hero and saves the world, I'm sorry, Jacob. Maybe you're a good guy after all. But I wouldn't know. And I have to take everything with a grain of salt because everything's fucking fake. And it's not my fault. It's not even Jacob's fault. But we are just at the whim of it. And of course, not going to go too deep into this. I just wanted to kind of hit on that theme where we saw when you want to amplify fear, right? You want to maybe combine a few different stories. You want to maybe combine the fact that there's going to be a death wave coming soon, 100K, 240K deaths, while simultaneously pairing up the media headlines with China hid the extent of coronavirus and millions are dead. Fuck! Panic! Panic now. Panic now. Give up your privacy. Give up your rights. Give up your freedom. Stay in your home. Stay away from your family. Stay away from your friends. Don't go outside. Lose your job. Don't pay the bills. Lose your home. Lose your apartment. Can't pay rent. Right? Put them together. You have a soup. You have a mixture of fear. The Chinese government has deliberately underreported the total number of coronavirus cases and deaths in the country. The intelligence community told the White House. The secret report concludes that China's numbers are fake, two of the officials said. The White House received the report last week, according to a news outlet, almost as if the medical intelligence agency had no idea about that, right? So the report 2 weeks ago, or last week, is the first time officials in the White House ever discovered that China was lying, and they were surprised. China's never lied before. And the world's most powerful intelligence apparatus, Five Eyes, NSA, CIA, all of these people failed to realize that China was lying. But meanwhile, in the early stages of the outbreak, when it was still limited to China and a few other countries I don't really give a shit about because they're not on my side of the hemisphere, actually algorithmically decoded how do I explain it? Basically, he made an equation. He took the rate of increase that China was reporting and discovered that with the death rate, the mortality rate, the rate of recovered, the rate of new cases, you put them together, divide this, multiply it by that, boom, bang, boom. He can literally see that there is a system in place where every day they'd report X, Y, and Z, then the next day they would do this, then the next day they would report this, but then they'd report this, and then there'd be a plateau, and then it goes up again. He literally took it down to a science. So he actually adequately predicted what the next day's numbers of coronavirus cases in China would be. But then again, though, the White House received that report last week saying that China was lying, and they were surprised about it. Okay? So why even cover it to begin with? That's to prime the people for top-tier fear. A lot of people probably died in China, maybe by the tens of thousands, and the death wave is about to hit New York. We're days, weeks away from the peak in the United States. So we have to start running the stories. Right? Run the presses, boys. Hit the presses hard. Instill the fear in the people. You know, fuck it. I'm not even going into this. I mean, we all know this. This is like, if anything, this would be boring to everyone watching right now. It's like nothing. Let me see what you guys are talking about right here. Once again, I appreciate everyone hanging out, stopping by. For those that haven't liked the video, hit the thummies. Helps me beat the algorithms. Appreciate it. The biggest thing you could do is share this, though, regardless. Titus Frost. Check out Dr. Wolfgang. What does that say? Shadow says, check out Dr. Wolfgang War Dog statements, dude. I've never heard of that guy. I definitely will. I'm afraid the painful 2 weeks refer to something other than COVID. Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope. Look, we can't let optimism fade. We can't let positivity fade. The ultimate weapon against these fucking freaks, these pizza freaks, these lizards, is just living a happy and fulfilling life. And if that includes having some hope that maybe some predictions are right, good. You know? I can't pretend like I don't deep down hope that like mass arrests are going to happen. Yep, Lothar's saying this whole thing is a big hoax. Every hospital is bloody empty. All testing sites, no one's even lining up. This whole thing is a big April Fool's joke. Yeah, I was waiting for the government to announce that today with April Fools. Can you imagine? Val says, finally made it to a live stream. Yeah, you know, I just haven't been really able to adequately do live streams recently, Val. It's a shame. It just, technology or YouTube or both, it's kind of messing with me. But I am over at DLive too, so you could follow me at DLive. MSM is owned by the Chinese Communist Party, yeah, and so is Reddit. The rate in which things get removed on Reddit when it's related to China is astounding. Not necessarily surprising, though. something is going on. Yup, something major is going on, and I know we're all missing a piece of the puzzle. We're all missing a piece of the puzzle. I'm not even sure if any of us have identified that piece yet. I think we have a lot of pieces. I think we've got the Harvard chemistry professor. We've got the people from National Microbiology Lab in Canada smuggling samples out. We've got the people from the Detroit airport smuggling viable samples, SARS, MERS. I mean, these are all pieces of the puzzle that I think cannot be ignored. I mean, shit, even fucking, what was it, NATO? They identified the National Microbiology Lab breach as an act of espionage. So clearly something's happening for sure, without a doubt. But anyway, guys, that's what I have for you today. I want to cut this so I can finish this little project I'm doing. I wanted to show you the intro, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to work on that a little bit tonight. But I appreciate you guys stopping by. For those not yet subscribed, definitely go ahead and do so. I'd love to have you join the community. There is a few things I'm working on other than that video, though. I'm debating on setting up like a Discord channel. If everyone can behave themselves like you always do in the chat, maybe it could be fun. At the very least, maybe I'll just do it as an experiment. So if you guys are interested in maybe setting up like, I don't know what would be better, like Telegram, Discord, might be kind of cool. That way, I don't know, you guys can drop links. We can stay up on top of the news, make sure we don't miss anything. I think that would be beneficial. Not too bad. They shake my entire house. Lots of helicopters today. Yeah, I've been watching Flight Radar 24. I haven't seen anything unusual around my area. Not yet, at least. So we're going to see about that. But anyway, guys, I'm going to cut it here. Thank you so much for joining me. Hit the thumbs up on the way out. Like and subscribe if you want to. Otherwise, what am I going to do about it? Hit me up on DLive. I'm there too. I feel like donating to the show. I'm on Patreon as well. I'll probably have a PayPal account up because why the fuck not? And that's that, my friends. Sleep well. Don't let Corona bite you. Yeah, maybe a Twitter private group. That might be a good one, bro, Miso. I'll think on it. It's all going to be an experiment. I'll think on it and we'll see what we can do. All right? Have a good one, guys. Ugh.
know, and philosophy is what we don't know. That's a simple definition. And for that reason, the questions are perpetually passing over from philosophy into science as knowledge advances.